Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Hello, Marion County and others. Welcome. We are being filmed today, so we are doing this a little bit differently than we normally do. This will be on CCTV. Is that right? Did I get that right? So I want to make sure you all look your best, I am Teresa Haskins, your chair of SEDCOR until July when Patricia Callahan Bowman takes over. And she'll get to stand up here next year. But I want to thank you for being here today and welcome you to our March SEDCOR Business Forum. And it's a busy day today in Salem. We have the Oregon Manufacturing Summit going on over at the Convention Center. And I'm guessing there's a couple hundred manufacturers and other parties over there. And we have the grand opening ribbon cutting of Garmin today also. So if you noticed that Tammy was a little more nervous in getting ready, she just ran off to Garmin, and Nick's our man, so he's in charge of the whole show. But we thank them for what they do, and Chad and all the team at SEDCOR. We have great staff, and thank them. So you know this, and I'll repeat it every month, and our numbers will continue to change, which is great because they're good numbers and they increase. But SEDCOR is the lead economic development organization for Marion and Polk counties, and we're touching in a little bit with Yamhill County and the Make It in the Valley grant. And with that, we have helped to secure over $104 million in investment to grow our businesses in this region over the last year. And that's retained or created over 1,400 jobs. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here every month, and that's why we volunteer and do what we are doing, and why we want to hear from the county today. So I want to introduce our head table. So to my right is Linda O'Neill. She's with Vigilant, and she will be introducing the county commissioners. But next to Linda is Sam Brentano, then Janet Carlson, and Kevin Cameron, your county commissioners, who will be more introduced in more detail in a few minutes. So thank you to the head table. I appreciate your willingness. Oh, wait a second. Just 1 second. I got a little more to do. Sorry about that. I know, I'm sorry. I nodded the wrong way, but it's close. So anyhow, we are looking forward to what they'll have to say. I want to thank the sponsors before you come up. So today we want to, once again, and please, if you're in the audience, stand up so everyone can see you and know who you are. Our representatives of MAPS Insurance Services, Ed and team, Northwestern Mutual, Brent, Express Employment Professionals, Patricia, I think I saw you, yep. Vigilant, which you just met, sort of. Chemeketa Community College, Diane or company, Julie, Johnny's here. Kaiser Permanente, yeah. Rich Duncan Construction, Rich, saw you there. Advanced Reporting, don't see anyone. And Sperry Van Ness Commercial Advisors. Thank you, all our sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause. Well, I didn't mention it, and none of them had gone off, but don't forget your cell phone, especially while our speakers are on the podium. Just make sure it's silenced or down to vibrate. And I also want to remind you of where and when our next Business Forum lunch is, and that's next April 8th here at the Broadway Commons, and we're going to bring back Tim Dewey, who's an professor of economics at University of Oregon, and he's going to give us his kind of crystal ball 2015 economic forecast, and you might remember that from last year. So bring your questions and your market perspective. I also want to introduce in the audience some mayors that we have with us today, and we always appreciate your service as mayors and the commitment it takes of time and talent. So Mayor of Kaiser, Kathy Clark, you want to stand? Welcome. Mayor of Silverton, Rick Lewis. Rick, there you are. And the Mayor of Donald, Daryl Nicholson. Thank you. Thank you all for what you do. So before I turn this over to Linda, Marion County is my home, and I think a lot of you call it home, not just now, but maybe where your families have been. And so I can't describe the county nearly as well as our commissioners because they deal with the here and now every day. But I hopped online like a good, I don't know, I would say millennial. I'm not a millennial. I'm not quite a baby boomer, whatever we are in that in-between generation. But I use Google. So I hopped online, and I was curious about our history. And I knew that Marion County used to be really big. Well, Marion County, when it was first established, was actually called Champooey, and it was a district. It was one of 4 districts that covered all of Oregon, and it went from roughly where we are now all the way down to the California border and all the way over to the Rocky Mountains. So aren't you glad you don't have that large of a county to cover? that would be challenging. You could have dealt with Klamath water issues, you know? And so that's interesting to me. And in 1856, I think it was, it took its current shape, and it stayed the same shape since 1856. So we're about 1,200 square miles, and I think we're proud of it. We've got a lot going on. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda to introduce the commissioners, and we'll have some Q&A time at the end. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you today as we hear from our commissioners regarding their counties. At Vigilant, we serve a similar set of employers as you represent here as SEDCORP members. And our mission is really to lift up business by providing expert counsel on complex HR issues to companies that are striving to be great employers. We do that primarily through services around employment law, workforce and workplace safety, and leadership and organizational development. So you have a little bit of collateral on your table. There's more on the table up front that I encourage you to look at if you're interested in more information. So without any further delay, excuse me, I have the privilege of introducing our speakers. And our first speaker is Commissioner Sam Brentano. And he was first appointed to the Board of Commissioners in 2003, was reelected in 2004, 2008, and 2012. As a commissioner, he focuses on emergency management, transportation, and children and family issues. Commissioner Brentano served as mayor of the city of Sublimity from 1982 to 1993. He also served 20 years as a volunteer firefighter and EMT, a businessman in the solid waste disposal industry for more than 30 years. He retired in 2001 from his position as president and general manager of United Disposal Service. He holds a bachelor's degree in business from the Oregon State University. Commissioner Brentano.
Before I really get started, I got to make a little confession. I don't carry a calendar around, so I scheduled an eye surgery for Monday afternoon, forgetting that Wednesday is one of the bigger events we have at the county. So I'm just a little bit uncomfortable physically, and I hope you can deal with that. Hope I don't start leaking, but that could happen too. For those of you that thought maybe that happened when you crossed Commissioner Carlson, that wasn't it. But it could happen. So let me get going. And again, this is an important opportunity for us to get out, maybe the best each year, of all the services that we provide to the citizens of Marion County. You'll see some on the boards, the film, but if you just listen to us, there's so many different things that the county does, and they want us to be quick, so I'll try. I was the board chair last year, so I'm supposed to kind of stick with what was last year, but of course I can't follow rules. But one that did happen in 2014, pretty well covered, was our return to Courthouse Square. After a couple years of being out as the building was essentially condemned, we spent roughly $27 million that we could have, wished we would have spent somewhere else. But it was a success, and I think we made the right decision. And being back for most of this last year, that's reaffirmed. We're back downtown, back where our employees are in one place, and people know where to expect. And and we don't lose the building. So we just had an inspection, and everything looks real good. And again, it just looks like we made the right decision. We had an open house and reopening, but one thing that didn't come out was that we had people in our office, especially Jan Fritz and Barb Young, that really spent time analyzing the business function in each of the offices. And I'm happy to say it just looks like it works better, it runs better. But we have a lot of extra space, and that probably ought to worry you because government abhors a vacuum, and I think we'll fill it up. I'm on the Oregon Garden Foundation board. I see Mayor Lewis here. I should have checked with him first and hope things are still going well, but it hasn't been really reported countywide, but negotiations going on to expand the garden, reaching new 80 acres. It's formerly the Pettit property, some new features. I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be that new life and growth that you like to see, satisfying the original goal of tourism and showcasing our number one industry, agriculture, and particularly the nursery business here in Marion County. So I'm hoping that's still going on, and it looks real positive, so watch for it. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about garbage. Our burner contract was up. We signed a new one, but a short-term one, 3 years, so we're into it. It also is coupled with PGE. Yes. They don't want to pay as much for electricity as they did years ago, so our returns are about a third, if I see it right, of what they've been. The burner works excellent. It processes all the waste in Marion County and some, and meets all the DEQ safeguards, but it's 25 or 27 years old now, and part of the reason for the short contract was to start to think through how we're going to make the next steps. What does the county need? What type of capital? Although maintained wonderfully, things are 25, 27 years old, and how we're going to split that up and how we're going to deal with the lower return in the sales of electricity. So I want you to watch for those things coming up. This is a bad one to talk about, but I might as well get it out. At least personally distressing for me, and I think I know for Commissioner Carlson too, but early last year we were at a meeting and see a headline that it says that British Columbia is kind of consolidating aborted fetuses in their medical waste and bringing it to Marion County for destruction. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but pretty distressing. I'm happy to report we stopped that within hours and raised a new system with a contract of individual suppliers of medical waste and even an inspection process to make sure it doesn't happen again. We were asked, and he gets into that, you don't normally at a county commissioner position that philosophical, ethical thing and try to impose your beliefs on somebody else. And they asked, so what are we supposed to do with these? And my answer, and I hope it's backed up, and seems to be, this makes me sad. But you can't, here's what you can do. You can cremate them or you can bury them, but you can't put them in the garbage. And that's a message we put out, and I'm proud of it. Now I'll switch to happier things. Time goes too fast. I've got a lot to talk about transportation. We have a report from our engineer Cindy Schmidt on different things we've done. Just have it known, between fewer timber dollars, state gas taxes not going far enough, we're not getting done what we need to. We have 145 bridges in Marion County, and there's some that are bad. They rate them 1 to 100. We average about 70, but we got some 30s and 20s. They say 25, here it is, 25.3, Meridian Road over Abaquaw Creek. They say it's safe, but just remember what you're going over. And it comes up, and especially at this time, and I just get furious about this, and this is my political comment, this Clean Air Senate Bill 324. it could preclude real new money coming in from an increase in gas taxes, which would be hard enough, and we don't want to raise taxes either, but it would have been the best source to really put some money into our infrastructure here in Marion County and the entire state. Instead, our legislature has come up with something that's going to cost $500 million and provide nothing for our roads or bridges, just meet a number that means nothing. And I know the governor hasn't signed it yet, and I hope she hears how unhappy I am about it, and I hope you let her know too. If we're going to raise taxes, let's try to accomplish something. I'll wind up with a little bit of, they say 10 minutes. That's just terrible. I've been on the policy committee coming up with an environmental impact statement for the third bridge, and we're wrapping that up now real quickly. About 7 or 8 years ago, they asked us, those who were to be on it, whether you'd commit to a year and come to the meetings and have input. I said, sure, a year, but that's about all. Well, that's 7 or 8 years, and we're still not done. That kind of scares me. But we're close to the end, and I think we've done some good things. We've chosen a path, and with that, then you can start. You don't build things in the way. You don't build shopping centers or housing developments. You can start doing it in segments. You can purchase right away. And if a process takes 8 or 10 years just to get planned, that's in the books and in the bank, and we're further along. The opponents to it are just, they're jumping. They say there's fewer people want to travel or drive cars. It's not needed. Well, here Salem, we've got one of the best east-west hubs in the whole state, and we need to take advantage of it. People live where transportation's good, and they build their businesses here, and we need to encourage that. And I'll end it by saying I'm real happy that we're winding up this process. We all know that it probably won't be built in our lifetime. Some of you here, I don't want to put it on everybody. Perhaps you could wheel me out in my wheelchair in my last breath and see where we're at. But we are moving forward with it, and I think it's a good plan, and I hope it moves forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brentano. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Kevin Cameron. He was appointed to the Board of Commissioners in June 2014 and was elected to his first term in November 2014. He previously served in the Oregon House of Representatives, representing the residents of House District 19 from 2005 to 2014. Commissioner Cameron has over 40 years of experience in the hospitality industry as an employee, manager, entrepreneur, and business owner. He's been an active member of the Salem community and has served in volunteer positions with Morning Star Community Church, Battle Creek Little League, OSU Alumni Board, and Corban University, among many others. Commissioner Cameron holds a Bachelor of Science in Business and Marketing with a minor in Science from Oregon State University, and in 2011, he received an honorary doctorate from Corban University.
Let's see, I'm going to text message here. No, I'm actually going to set the timer, Commissioner Carlson, so I know how particular we are about being on time at the commission. In fact, one of the first things I learned when I got to the Board of Commissioners is at the state legislature, if you were 5 minutes late to a committee, you were on time. In the commission, if you're not sitting in the seat 5 minutes before the board meeting starts, Sam is with his black eyes staring you down. So I got on time really fast. I want to say thank you to Linda for sponsoring and being here today, and for the support in this room for myself and for the commission over the years. I want to say thank you to a staff that I've got to know over the last 9 months, led by John Latimer, who's here, a sheriff, our legal counsel, Gloria, Roy, Jan, Colleen's brand new with this, and Alan, who heads up our Public Works Department, and there's a few other people, Hatesh, who waters my fake plants. I just want to say thank you to the staff for a great job that you at Marion County as citizens can be proud of the people that are employed that do all the behind-the-scenes work that we have to take care of, or that take care of us for us. So my first 9 months, and I guess what you realize as I got introduced, but before me, Sam got introduced, you need to know who your county commissioners are. Garbage hauler, hamburger flipper, And you'll hear that Janet is the professor with all her doctorates, so you know who the smartest one in the room is at all our meetings. The last 9 months have just been a whirlwind for me, being appointed and then being elected. And you wouldn't believe all the meetings that we have to go to and sit on, and all the commissions that we get to go to. I've been going to a county college that has been great education for me. It's put on by the Association of Oregon Counties. I'm learning how to be a better county commissioner. But one of my most productive things I've done in the last 9 months is Commissioner Carlson and I went back to Washington, D.C. about 3 weeks ago, and we met with the Oregon Department of Agriculture, the EPA, the EDA, the Economic Development people, and learned how we can work with the federal government to bring some of the resources that we so dearly need in some of our depressed areas, and specifically in the Santiam Canyon. And I want you to know, Marion County is very large. You go past Idana when you're up the canyon, and you're still in Marion County. So we have a very beautiful but depressed area in the canyon. So my focus has been in economic development. And the next time, or if you look up at that slide, there's some statistics up there. You probably can't see them from this direction, so I'm going to read you one that's not up there that I think is extremely important as we move forward over the long term in Marion County on economic development. The per capita income, and you can look up the definition of per capita income, but it's basically the gross domestic product of Marion County divided by everybody who's 15 years and older. Our per capita income is $23,316. That number's not up there, George, so don't look for it. I knew you were looking for it. 23,000. The state is 26,800. So Clackamas County, which we get compared to a lot, because there's about 380,000 citizens in Clackamas County, 320 in Marion County. Clackamas County's per capita income is $32,781. So there is a $9,000 differential, basically almost, 33% differential in the per capita income between Clackamas County and Marion County. So we have a very poor county when you compare it to other places in the state. And I don't want to say that to be negative, but I want us to know what we really face here and the job we have ahead of us. If you took that number that we're behind Clackamas and you multiplied it times the 320,000 citizens that we have that earn that income here in Marion County, or the families, we'd have $3 billion more in income a year in Marion County. Imagine what $3 billion would do for the things that we need to do in Marion County. So the state to the north of us, their per capita income is 30 some odd $1,000. So Oregon's behind Washington drastically as well. The next slide. So what can county government do to impact economic development? You're going to see 5 strategic areas up there. But the basic things that we can do is make sure we have a strong and efficient customer service in our public works, to get the planning department, to make sure our roads, that we have a strong farm-to-market infrastructure, as Sam talked about. And you'll hear Latimer talk about this all the time. If we don't have farm-to-market roads, we're number one in agricultural at $640 million a year in agricultural production. It's number one in the state. If we don't have a good road system to get that product to market, along with places like modern building systems that ships things down the road, then we're not going to be able to take care of the existing businesses that we have. Community Services Department, we have a great staff that staffs that, and some of our EDAB board members that are meeting this afternoon are here with us today. Strategically aligning all the organizations within the county and even Polk County to make sure we're working together. I sit on the SEDCORD board. We have private sector resources that we need to align. We have federal resources, state resources, county resources, cities, and nonprofits that all need to come together to make sure we're focused on the right things that with the minimum resources that we have, so we can move this county forward and provide better incomes for the people that live here. The next slide. And Janet, my timer went off, so I think I got a couple minutes left. This is where our funds have been invested over the last 5 years in economic development. And I'll just draw attention to the far slide on the left, or the far graph on the left. That is driven by the Oregon Garden. It's a little bit over $500,000 a year. I don't know if you know this, but we support the bonds at the Oregon Garden. Long-term strategy, those funds will become freed up in a couple of years where we'll be able to reinvest those, redirect those in other strategic things that we think are important. We will continue to support the Oregon Garden from an operations standpoint, and that they have a great foundation to move forward. The next number that's up there is we spend a lot of our money on planning and helping with the things that need to be done for growth. We spend the next one on tourism, so we invest in SEDCOR. Well, we invest in SEDCOR, but we also invest in Travel Salem and GROW, which is an economic organization up in the canyon. And our future investments, 5 to 10 years from now, we put this slide back up there, I think you'll see a different trend where the money's being invested and how we're strategically aligning those funds. The last slide, and then I am done. I want to share with you, yesterday I was in the Capitol. Boy, is it good to be in the Capitol and be on the other side. We were in the Capitol on statewide day talking about the OSU Extension Services. And I don't know if you know what OSU Extension Services does, but if you've ever seen 4-H at the fair, if you've ever seen the Research Center, which actually is housed in Clackamas County, but those people come down and help us with crops. There's a huge amount of things that OSU Extension Service does. We fund that through our general fund, and we have, as commissioners, and a lot of work was done before we did this, referred on the ballot here in May. You're going to see an OSU Extension Service District that you'll be able to vote on, which will support that with stable funding for our #1 agricultural economic driver in our state. You'll get a chance to vote on that. It's 5 cents a thousand. The normal $200,000 house, it'll cost them $10 a year, and that'll raise us somewhere in the long term about $900,000 to $1 million a year to help fund the ag extension service. It's great to be here with you, and thank you for all you do for helping Marion County and our community be stronger. And we got a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to doing it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron. Our next and final speaker is Commissioner Janet Carlson. She was elected to the Board of Commissioners in November 2002 and re-elected in 2006, 2010, and 2014. Her accomplishments as commissioner include raising community awareness around prisoner reentry and reinvigorating the Marion County Fair. Commissioner Carlson is a past president of the Association of Oregon Counties and served as a state representative in the Oregon legislature in 2001-2002. She taught French and social studies in public schools for 10 years, was a budget analyst for the state of Oregon, and served as budget director and regional coordinator for the Oregon Commission of Children and Families. She is a summa cum laude graduate of Willamette University, holds a master's degree in political science from Brigham Young University, and a PhD in education and public policy from the University of Oregon. Commissioner Carlson?
To bring this down just a little bit. I think we're good there. Can you hear me okay? All right, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank SEDCOR for hosting us today. I was thinking back to 2003, which was my first year as a county commissioner and my first State of the County address. And we were in the senator hearing room with about 10 people in the audience speaking to the CCTV camera. And we had no time limits at all. So we went about an hour. It was Patty, Milne, Mike Ryan, and myself. And I'm not sure that anyone knew we were even giving it, but we felt pretty good about it. So this has been a really nice move to come here where we actually have an audience and people to share this information with. Second thing is I've been getting a lot of heat during this conversation. I've been accused of striking Sam in the eye and being a stickler on time. So I just want to say, just don't believe what you hear. I do kick them under the table every now and then. I elbow them both every now and then, but other than that, I'm pretty easy to work with. So Sam started because he was the outgoing chair. And I'm the incoming chair, and so I go last. But last year, I actually pulled my notes up, and I was the outgoing chair last year. So how did that happen? Well, it was Kevin being added to the board, and actually he would have been, I think, next in line to be chair, because Patty was next in line to be chair, but he said, no, I want to have some time to learn. And so we kind of re-rotated the positions. And so that's the kind of person he is to work with, always very giving, very interested in learning more, and brings a lot of energy and a lot of new ideas to the board. So we're just really happy to have him here. So I'm going to talk about three things, and as Sam said, we cannot possibly touch on everything that Marion County does. You have a lovely brochure in front of you that describes our county goals and gives you some highlights. Even it doesn't talk about everything that the county does, and we can thank Jolene Kelly for helping us put that together. She is our public information director or coordinator. I don't know what her title is, but she does a great job for us. So I'll talk about the Kaiser Big Toy, and then I'm going to talk about public safety, and then just do a little bit about budget to wrap up. So every now and then, you have the opportunity as a county commissioner to work on a wonderful community project. And in 2003, I believe it is, when I became a commissioner, I was asked to be on a task force in Kaiser called the Kaiser River Task Force. It had an extra R in it. I can't remember what it stood for. It's Kaiser. I can't remember what it stood for. We said we were talking like pirates all the time. So that was the group that started putting together a park down by the Willamette River. If you take Shamawa Road and go straight out to the river, it's just south of Shamawa Road. It was roughly 120 acres when we started out. Includes 85 acres that is owned by the state of Oregon and leased to the city of Kaiser. For I think no cost at all through Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. There were 2 private parcels of land. Marion County bought a recreation easement and a conservation easement. And you can see on the pictures up there, it's just on a beautiful bend by the river. Not a huge rapids at Kaiser Rapids, but hiking trails and bike paths and open fields, and just a gorgeous spot. If you haven't been there, I would highly recommend it. There's a recent property purchase that the city of Kaiser has done that adds another, I think, 28 acres to the 120 acres. And that is an orchard, and the trees just came down last Tuesday, and we are building a number of recreational amenities there, one of them being the Kaiser Big Toy. So when you hear about the Big Toy, and you can change the slide now. Thank you. When you hear about the Big Toy, you think about, a little jungle gym in a schoolyard with some bark dust around it. This is much beyond. It's almost called the Big Toy facetiously, because it's going to be a huge state-of-the-art playground out there in the Kaiser Rapid Park. It's being done all with donated labor, with grants and contributions from the community. It was designed by 3,400 Salem Kaiser school children, so they all drew pictures of what they wanted in the playground in sequence. They had focus groups, and then they had landscape architects that came in and they unveiled it to the community in a really nice community meeting. So all of those features are being there. Some of our culture and history are being included. There's going to be the Wallace House log cabin and the Smith Rock climbing wall. So those are really neat. And then the volcanoes are they wanted to have a volcano on it, so they're actually building a volcano that will have a slide that comes down through it. So lots of neat ideas that are going to be in this playground. It will be built June 10th through 14th over a 5-day community build. So if you think about the Gilbert House, how it was built, and you think about the extreme makeover at the deaf school, kind of like that. We need volunteers for food, childcare, painting, swinging a hammer. We have a website, www.kaiserbigtoy.org. So if you're interested, want to have a team and come together and have some fun the week after school's out. It is Rose Festival week. We're hoping it doesn't rain, but we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. We were recently endorsed by the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce Public Policy Committee. We presented there, and we're going all around presenting to neighborhood associations and Rotary clubs and trying to get a lot of grassroots community support. So I just wanted to highlight that for you today. The second issue that I'd like to talk about is public safety. Every year I've talked about the Marion County Reentry Initiative. This is an initiative that helps people coming out of prison transition successfully back into the community. We have about 3,600 people on parole and probation, and between 500 and 600 coming back on post-prison supervision. When I first started talking about this, we had 700 people coming back on post-prison supervision, and now we have about 520. I think I confirmed that number recently. Part of the reason that we have fewer people is because of the good work that is being done by the Reentry Initiative. In 2002, about 36% of our population committed a new felony crime within 3 years. That number dropped last year. The statistic was 14%. So we went from 36% to 14%. Pretty incredible. Yes. Commissioner Cameron serves on the Governor's Reentry Council, and they're working on this at the state level. We work in partnership with the Department of Corrections. We had a luncheon right here in this room several months ago about employment and trying to get more employers interested in hiring people that have a criminal background but have turned their lives around. We're also working on housing, on family issues, on treatment, on education. So it's a really broad group of services that help people turn their lives around, and we're very proud of the work that we do. And Deb Giard is nodding back there, but she was involved in that presentation and did a fantastic job. The second item that I'd like to talk about in terms of public safety is the Public Safety Coordinating Council. And when Patty Milne retired, I assumed the chairmanship of that group last summer in August. We have 27 people that serve. Don Fredrickson here is one of our citizen members. The Marion County Sheriff, Jason Myers, serves. We have judges, district attorney, chiefs of police, department heads in health and community services. A number of nonprofits all work together on these public safety issues. We're working right now on a plan for House Bill 3194 funding, which is that justice reinvestment funding, capping the prison population and reinvesting the savings back into the community. We're also working on a number of interesting issues, and I'll just throw them out because we don't have a lot of time to go through each one of them, but marijuana legalization, that's going to be an issue that enforcement's going to have to deal with. How does it align with medical marijuana? We adopted an ordinance last year on medical marijuana dispensaries, youth access, and county issues ranging from land use to taxation. Body cameras, there's a work group of chiefs of police that are looking at that, and our sheriff is involved with that. Mental health, Marion County has state-of-the-art mental health services, and we use that to help divert people who are mentally ill from jail, because jail is the worst place to help treat someone who has mental illness. We have mobile crisis teams, we have a 24/7 psychiatric crisis center, we have jail diversion managers and mental health teams. We do crisis intervention training, and we also do evaluations about whether people are able to aid and assist in their own defense. And finally, juvenile services. We're working on a bill with the legislature and with the Oregon Youth Authority to implement intensive in-home services here in Marion County. If you think about it, if you have a youth who is troubled and you send them to residential treatment and their family is from here and you send them to Albany or Portland because we have virtually no beds here, and then they come back and go right back into the same family with the same friends and the same dynamics, you're going to just get the same thing over again. So the idea of actually working holistically with the family, with the youth, with their peers in intensive services makes a lot of sense. And I'm proud to announce, and it just came out today, we were under a non-disclosure agreement up until about 11 o'clock this morning, but Marion County is one of, I think, about 7 places in the nation that was chosen to do a pay-for-success technical assistance grant, which means that we'll learn how to do long-range contracts where we pay providers for the outcomes that they do, not just for the services that they provide. And so we're really excited to get going on that. Finally, budget. Budget, I always tell people, because you heard I was a budget analyst at one time, budget is art and science. Those of you that do budget know that it's not just like accounting and numbers, it's really the manifestation of what your policy direction is as an entity or as a government. So you have in front of you, it's not a pie chart this year, it actually shows you where the money goes in Marion County. Our total adopted budget for the current year is about $371 million. That's all funds. But our general fund, that's the discretionary fund, is just over $82 million. So most of our monies are actually dedicated to certain purposes, whether that be Medicaid for health services, solid waste for the program that Sam talked about, road fund. So those are some of our large funds. Of that discretionary money, of that $82.4 million, 78% goes to public safety. So when you think of budget as being a manifestation of priorities, you can see where the priority of this Board of Commissioners has been over the years that we spend that large a share of our budget on public safety. Much is in flux. The legislature is in town, as you know. We work with the legislature very much in terms of connections to our revenue sources. So I just made a short list of which of our programs are related to legislative decisions: community corrections, economic development, mental health, public health, assessment and taxation, juvenile services, justice courts, transportation, county fair, parks, children and families, district attorney, and OSU Extension, which you heard about. And that is a partnership between the Oregon State University and Marion County. I wanted to tag on to what Kevin said about that. We provide about $350,000 a year. The lion's share that goes to OSU Extension comes from state and federal sources. The state and federal sources have decreased their budgets over the last 10 years, and they have lost positions in OSU Extension, but we in the county have not decreased our budget, and we're committed to continue helping support them in both this levy that they're working on and in the contribution that we make to them. And we have committed to help pay their lease costs, I think, for at least 3 years during the transition. So don't want anyone to leave thinking that we're offloading OSU Extension from the county in this levy situation. So anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with my fellow commissioners. I thank you for hosting us today, and we are open for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all three of you. Really appreciate all your effort to prepare and your willingness to take questions. So Jolene, raise your hand. Jolene is out in the audience with a microphone. Do any of you have some questions for the commissioners?
Well, then I'll continue what I wanted to say.
Okay, I'll let Sam do that. And Sam, after you continue what you want to say, tell us a little bit about rural economic development. I'm curious what you all see is the future for some of these smaller communities who are really seeing a lot of growth, like Donald, Aurora, Silverton. So, after you.
Well, I will. I don't think it came up, but one of the fun things we're working on is that we, about 15, 20 years ago, Opal Creek Wilderness, and it was, well, when you make something wilderness, you take it out of production, take it out of access. So the trade-off was that the federal government would be providing the East Canyon with about $15 million worth of grants, economic development. And then a lot of things happened. Senator Hatfield was carrying it, and he retires. 9/11 happens. It's not important anymore, and it just kind of gets left off. So in the last year, the question came up in a meeting we had in the East County, where's that money at? And so we've looked into it. And what it took at the time was an economic study to be done, and that was done, and the governor needed to sign off. It needed to sign off on it. So we've, through the Council of Government, some of them are here, we did a new economic study just this last week. We took a paper in asking for the governor's signature. And you heard the two commissioners were in Washington, and I worked on it the prior year too, trying to get some of this restarted. So I just have to tell you that the opportunity is there. There'll be a meeting coming up, I think it's April 7th, for the communities to talk about what they need. But it's one of the real good shots to brighten up this area, and we're pretty excited about it.
Teresa, that was a good question. I'm going to focus on the canyon. I think you said Silverton and Donald and Aurora, and obviously I spent a lot of time up at the Aurora Airport with the PAM and the business people up there, and I keep reminding, because the city of Wilsonville represents the Aurora Airport, and I keep reminding them it's in Marion County, not across the road. But one of the things that all the commissioners are working on, that got started way before I did, is this canyon project. And when you go up to Detroit or Gates, they don't have a sewer system. Their water systems are over 50 years old. They're leaking water. And there's the perfect storm that's been set up. And Commissioner Carlson and I were back with our lobby team in Washington, D.C., talking about the Opal Creek $15 million promise that never came through. And we all know in this room you're not going to get an earmark for $15 million for the canyon. But we're using that as leverage as we put together this plan. And we have April 7th. We have a big, well, it's not going to be big, but it's going to be federal delegation, state regional solutions people there, our offices, county offices, and then local leaders will be up. We've invited all our congressional delegation. We don't know if any of them will show up to just say hi. But we're literally going to be working on projects in each one of those small communities. And we are, I use the word facilitators, and Commissioner Carlson says, no, we're the doers. We're actually going to have our staff drive those projects up in that canyon. And I wrote on the board the other day, we can't wait 10 years, or we can't have a long-term plan. There's certain people up there that need a WIN. And if we don't get a win for them, I think the hope will just go right down the tube. So that's what we're really focused on, is where can we make an impact here in the next year or two with some project up in the canyon. Does that help?
Let me add something to it. So just in addition to everything that's been said, there's a lot of discussion around the nation about what's the role of government with economic development. Does government create jobs, or are public sector jobs even, growing the economy? There's kind of that feeling there. Then the other side of the equation is that government should just get out of the way. We have lottery money. Does that have any influence? And I think I'm becoming more and more convinced that the preeminent role of government in economic development is infrastructure. There is one thing the private sector cannot do, and they cannot put in water systems, they can't put in sewer systems, they don't put in the roads and highways and bridges and the things that Sam talked about. And so I think no matter whether it's the Canyon or elsewhere, and a lot of the projects that we saw on the Canyon list were water systems, sewer systems. Broadband is another one that they're very interested in because they can't get a solid internet connection out there, and you know how important that is for business. So I think we're going to be really looking at how can we bring that as Marion County and help all of those smaller communities across the county in that regard.
Yeah, I only get one shot, Sam says. Well, I'm taking two. I'm the new guy, so I get away with it. I'm always in trouble. If you didn't know this about me, I'm always in trouble in the office. They come into my office, and now what did I do wrong? The other thing I would add to that is the EDAB board, who's going to meet this afternoon, they do focus on, if you remember that slide, there's about $200,000 a year of the $1 million in lottery funds that goes into grants for job creation. And so those types of places like Aurora and Silverton, where companies, and we're focused on existing companies that are here that can expand or potentially are going to lose a job, and we award those grants. And we just went through grant awards, and we'll be getting ready to send those next grant applications are going to go out probably in a month or two. For the next year, for next fiscal year. So we do some of that as well for existing businesses. And then Nick's here someplace. Harville, Nick's way back there. We're supporting Nick and a lot of the chambers in the business retention and expansion surveys that we're going through right now, listening to business, trying to find out what it is businesses really need so that we can focus on the silos. For example, our ag business here is huge, and that's part of our economic issue is that you've got agricultural business, not real high-paying jobs, but when you put in a GK Machines in Aurora that's producing, hundreds of $50,000 plus year jobs, you start to build silos in ag business that can really expand our economy, keep the production here, keep the supply here, and so that's what we're trying to work on as well with SEDCOR. I only went twice. So
It is your job, Ed. Thank you. While they're walking over here, I was remiss in not making sure all the audience knows how much SEDCOR is not just a partner with Kevin being on our board and the commissioners here today, but they are one of our key funding partners for SEDCOR. And for that, and maybe I forget because we work so closely together every day that, but I really want to call that out and the importance of that support that we get from SEDCOR. So thank you, or from the county for SEDCOR. So thank you.
which is your tax dollars, by the way.
Thank you. My question has to do with the move back into the building. And there was some comment about during the process of being out of the building elsewhere, some services may have benefited from being closer to the people they serve. Were there any of the departments or divisions that stayed where they had been because of that?
Well, I don't know if I heard that, Ed, that people benefit. The one that comes to mind is Public Works. We pretty well, in terms of anybody trying to get a building permit or do any development, just about all the planning, buildings, permitting services are all out on Silverton Road, and we left them there. One that hurts me, and different than you might think, is planning. We haven't had a lot of land use issues in the last couple of years, but when we do, I sure like having them right close so I can go in and get a little tutorial prior to the hearing or whatever the question is, and they're still out at Public Works, so I'd kind of like to get them back. But other than that, everybody's out there, and I think I see Rich here nodding. Those that do in the construction business like having everybody in one place. The rest of them, I don't think it worked out at all. I use the example, legal counsel, Gloria Roy's here, just like Kevin. Before the Courthouse Square problem, I'd probably be in legal counsel once a week, and I'm not making this up. And same question, am I in trouble yet? And then 2 years goes. 2 years goes on, and they're out on 13th Street. Well, you got computer and telephone and everything, FaceTime, everything else. But if they're not there, you don't take advantage of them the same way. And I really felt like then we weren't getting what we're paying for. Not your fault. They always are wonderful. But I didn't have access to them. So that's what I'm happy about getting. You need somebody, you know where they are, and you go get them. It's just the way I think it needs to be.
Let me just add one more, and that's elections. So that really was part of moving back into Courthouse Square. For years, they moved out into South Salem, and they live pretty close to where I live. And the idea was we had space in Courthouse Square. The lease costs were going up out in the area that they were in. We thought the county could save some money by consolidating and moving together. The clerk's office, the rest of the clerk's office was in the courthouse, and we moved them into Courthouse Square, so they have nicer quarters now. There was some controversy, Salem Weekly wrote some articles, and, there was a little bit of grousing, some concerns about parking. We're working through those concerns. But if you think about, if any of you have taken your ballot in on the night of the election when they were out there and watched the cars back up on Southeast Commercial, I don't know if you've been there, but that area was not easy to get in and out of, and they actually moved their drop box downtown right at the courthouse, right? So now they're actually down there where that mail drop off is, right? And we've made arrangements with City of Salem, and it's working really well. But change is hard for some of the folks that have been the volunteers that have been there years and years and years. So that might be another one that you've heard about.
As somebody who worked, that'd be too easy, Ed. As somebody who worked really hard to get the DMV to open on Saturdays or nights or weekends, to serve you, we do have a municipal court that is open on Tuesday nights. So if any of the sheriff's people help you donate some revenue to the county, I just want you to know that we are open at your convenience in the evening on Tuesday nights. In fact, I took pizza out there. So.
All right. Well, unless there's another question out there in the audience, I think we've exhausted that for the day. Thank you. Again, commissioners, thank you for what you do. Thanks, Jolene, for stepping in, pinch hitting there. Reminder again, our next forum, April 8th, and Tim Dewey from University of Oregon will be there, our economic forecast. And I think that's it. Go forth, be prosperous today, and again, thank you for your support of SEDCOR.